For years, Formula One has lived under the illusion that its rulebook is a shield, a flawless system capable of containing every controversy. But the last few weeks exposed something uncomfortable, something the paddock tried to whisper instead of shout. The regulations are cracking, the drivers are angry, and the FIA is suddenly unsure of its own authority. The sport arrived at this moment almost by accident, piling incident after incident until the structure finally bent. And now the situation is so delicate that a single meeting between the FIA and the GPDA, the Grand Prix Drivers Association, has shaken every corner of the championship. When a group of the world's best drivers sits down with the federation and says the system is broken, that's not just tension. That's a warning. And if this feels like a story you've heard before, you're right. Every time Formula One begins to evolve faster than its own rulebook, something explodes. This might be the next explosion. Before we dive into the core of what happened and why the drivers are demanding structural change, let me remind you of something simple: subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because this video needs to reach every Formula One fan who senses that something big is about to happen. What we're about to discuss could redefine how the sport is judged, how incidents are handled, and how championships are decided. And trust me, we're just getting started. If you enjoy content that cuts through the noise and keeps you ahead of the Formula One narrative, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so the video reaches more Formula One fans. You make this community stronger. The meeting between the FIA and the GPDA wasn't a polite conversation about minor adjustments. It was an intervention. And at the center of this entire storm are two names that have defined this season's most volatile rivalry: Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Their clashes didn't just generate debates online, they exposed inconsistencies the FIA could no longer hide. Every time these two fought on track, the rulebook bent in a different direction. One race called it hard racing. Another called it dangerous. One steward panel saw aggression. Another saw nothing wrong. The truth is simple and uncomfortable: modern Formula One outgrew its own regulations, and Verstappen and Norris became the unwilling test subjects of this malfunctioning system. When Max defends, he uses the psychological warfare of a driver who has mastered control. He pushes the limit until the limit becomes the question. Lando, on the other hand, represents the new generation trying to challenge him on equal terms, but every time the two go wheel to wheel, the sport ends up debating the same problem: what is allowed, and what isn't? And why does the answer keep changing? The meeting with the GPDA made something clear. The stewards no longer agree with each other, the FIA no longer seems confident in the precedents it sets, and the drivers have lost patience. They want clarity. They want consistency. They want a system that doesn't turn every incident into a political earthquake. Behind closed doors, the tone was sharper than the public statements will ever admit. Some drivers insisted that the current penalty system encourages inconsistency. Others criticized the lack of transparency. A few even admitted they no longer understand how to race wheel to wheel without risking a penalty that seems to depend more on interpretation than regulation. And while the meeting wasn't officially about Max and Lando, everyone knew that their recent incidents forced the discussion to reach critical mass. It's their rivalry that revealed the cracks with brutal clarity. The FIA walks a dangerous line now. If they tighten the rules too much, they risk suffocating racing. If they keep everything subjective, they invite chaos. But what makes this moment unprecedented is that the drivers, as a unified group, are demanding change. They want the rulebook rebuilt, not patched. They want stewards who interpret incidents the same way no matter the circuit, no matter the political pressure, no matter the names involved. And that brings us to the real tension: the FIA will have to choose whether it wants a sport governed by consistency or a sport governed by improvisation disguised as judgment. And whichever side they choose, someone will be furious. And while all of this brews behind the scenes, the Verstappen-Norris rivalry continues to escalate. Every lap they complete around each other has the weight of a political negotiation. Every move they make determines not just the race but the future of how racing will be judged. They're pushing the sport into a corner, and the sport is finally realizing it can't escape without rewriting its own foundation. The GPDA didn't just demand clarity. They demanded evolution. And that puts Formula One exactly where it fears being, at the edge of a transformation it can't delay any longer. Every rivalry in Formula One carries a price, but the Verstappen-Norris dynamic is especially volatile because both drivers are still evolving. Verstappen believes that dominance is not only earned but defended with aggression. Norris believes he finally has a car worthy of his talent, and he refuses to be treated as a side character in Max's script. This is a collision course sharpened by personality, expectation, and the ticking clock of a generation shift. Fans love to imagine friendships surviving championship pressure, but Formula One tends to expose the truth. When the stakes rise, even the calmest personalities fracture. If Norris truly wants the title, he must stop racing with respect and start racing to win, even if it breaks the relationship he's protected for years. And Verstappen? He has never been more cornered. For the first time since 2021, someone is threatening to push him off the throne by pure pace, not strategy or luck. This is why the tension between them feels different from any other rivalry on the grid. They're not enemies, yet. But they're no longer friends either. They're two meteors heading toward the same piece of sky, and only one can keep the orbit. The real question is whether this rivalry becomes legendary or destructive enough to change both of their careers forever. If you're still here, you're clearly the type of fan who doesn't blink when Formula One gets messy. So do us both a favor, hit that subscribe button before this rivalry gives us another shock moment. Because if you think Verstappen and Norris have already shown their worst, wait until the next wheel-to-wheel fight. The championship isn't ready, and maybe they aren't either. Make sure you're here when the next chapter drop. The Verstappen-Norris rivalry isn't just another chapter in Formula One drama. It's the clearest sign that the sport is shifting under everyone's feet. The old eras had their own fire, Senna versus Prost, Schumacher versus Hakkinen, Hamilton versus Vettel, but Max versus Lando was built on something more modern, more fragile, and far more combustible, the collapse of friendship racing. They grew up side by side, gamed together, laughed together, built a public image of being the relaxed new generation, and now they're discovering how little any of that matters when the championship finally calls. Every race redefines their relationship. Norris enters each weekend knowing this might be the moment he proves he belongs at the very top. Verstappen enters knowing he cannot show weakness, because predators don't stay kings by being gentle. Both are under pressure, both know the other threatens their legacy, and both have stopped pretending the tension is anything but real. McLaren's rise has pushed this rivalry from hypothetical to inevitable. Red Bull's internal cracks, Adrian Newey's departure, the tightening performance gap, all of it brings the championship closer to a knife edge. Fans are watching two great talents collide at full speed with almost no political cushion between them. And that is why the stakes feel so unnervingly high. Neither of them is willing to back down, not anymore. Maybe this ends with both men older, wiser, laughing about how they nearly destroyed each other chasing the same dream. Or maybe the season will give us a defining moment, one overtake, one clash, one controversial penalty that splits the paddock in half and becomes the new reference point for every rivalry that comes after. This is the future of Formula One, raw and unfiltered. And whether this rivalry becomes the sport's next masterpiece or its next tragedy, one thing is certain, you're witnessing history forming in real time. If you want every chapter of this chaos delivered straight to you, support the channel. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, is this rivalry heading toward greatness or toward disaster? Either way, it's going to change the sport. Tell me in the comments who you think about this. And if this video hits 10,000 likes, we'll post daily updates all the way to Abu Dhabi. The next days will define careers and maybe even rewrite Formula One history.